if we should encounter an emergency, we can exit the building from the lobby, either to the west or the east, and if for some reason those exits are not available, we can use the north exit here behind council. Our muster point is located near the gazebo in Lions Park. If we're evacuated for any reason, we'll not re-enter the building until that guy right over there tells us we're allowed to come back in. And let's see, adoption of the agenda. I know that there are a couple of additional agenda items.
I'd like to request that we add an addition to the agenda for a closed meeting regarding land matters within the town of Smoky Lake as item 1.
Sylvan Lake.
I'm sorry. It is way too close. And I knew I was going to do it. I just didn't think it would be the first thing in my first council meeting. I got it out. I'm done. All right. All right.
We're going to keep a running total and see how it goes.
Sorry. Try the second one and see if I can get it right. And then the second item is to request an addition to the agenda for a closed meeting regarding a legal matter related to a star appeal within the town of Sylvan Lake.
Excellent. So we will call the closed sessions number 6, and we'll call number 7 the adjournment. Okay. Then who would like to move adoption of the agenda? Councillor Rilling, all in favor? Excellent. So first up, we have item number 3, discussion items, and we've got a fire bylaw review with Chief Bronson.
Great, thank you, Council. So I'll just do a quick overview of why I'm here tonight. I'm sure you're aware, you read the stats for the fire department. The call volume just keeps going up and up. I think last year we were at 588 calls. So a lot of those calls are literally out of our control. We can't control how many of them when they're coming in. But there is a couple of initiatives that I want to introduce later on in my presentation where we can maybe drop some of those calls. The alarm calls are becoming more and more prevalent, and a lot of them are false alarms, right? For no other definition, that's just what they are. So I think you'll see in my stats that, you know, we're looking at some, I think last year was even almost 50% of our calls were alarm calls. If 588 calls for a paid on-call department is pushing the limits times probably 2 or 3. So my real goal here is, and me and Graham talked about it a little briefly, my real goal here is to keep the paid on-call firefighters just as long as we can. They have huge commitments. The community has lots of commitments from them, and I have a lot of commitments from them. And they have commitments at home, and they have commitments in their professional careers too. So whatever we can do to alleviate some of that pressure, I think would be very welcoming to them, certainly to me. So, as I just go, sorry about that. Kind of forgot their route. Okay. All right, so I just want to kind of go over our staffing levels a little bit, our model. So we have 3 chief officers, 1 admin assistant full-time, and 30 paid on-call firefighters. As I said earlier, Councillor Parsons, we are basically where we need to be, or where I've always dreamed to be as far as firefighters. We have 30 men and women that do an outstanding job for us, so I certainly cannot, slag them in any way, shape, or form. 2 inactive members, 1 heads up our peer support group, and 1 is a fire prevention officer. We utilize 3 crews, so we have 1 captain, 1 to 2 lieutenants, and 8 firefighters for each crew. They go on a 1-week rotation, so they're on call for 1 week, they're off for a week, and they're on backup for 1 week. Okay, the on-call runs from 9 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning, so it gives those people a chance to go to work, do some family things when they come home, and then they're on the clock at 9 o'clock at night till the following morning. Okay, we rotate every Wednesday, and we have a weekend on call from the May long weekend to September long weekend, which puts them on call on a 24-hour clock, starting Friday night at 6 o'clock at night until Sunday night at 6 o'clock. So we pay them $30 for one of those shifts, and they're normal call-outs. So that's kind of the modeling that we're using. With not just the call-outs, but all our training is completed on Wednesday nights, usually 3 hours. We like to target 3 hours, and all other certified courses are done on their time in the evenings and on the weekends. Okay, so the slide you're seeing here is some call volumes for the last 6 years, 2019 to 2024. As you can see, we have kind of steadily risen over that time and capping out with 588 calls last year, 560 the year before. You know, I thought back in 2020 that, you know, it was just a bad year. Well, I have that bad dream every year for the last 3 years. It's the norm. It's not a one-off anymore. These are the call volumes that I don't believe are going to change unless we drive something to change those numbers. Just jump in anytime if you got any questions. So now we've broken it down here in the next slide. We've broken it down to how many of these are alarm calls versus our total calls. And you can see in 2024, last year, we were just about 300 alarm calls, okay, with 588 total calls. So we're almost 50% or near around those numbers, right? So I think we can reduce these. I really do. I mean, some of them are legit. There's no question about that, but some of those they're just nuisance calls. And now we're looking at some staffing hours here. Again, you can see the total staff hours invested in total calls, total incidences, and then we break it down into alarm calls. So if you look at even 2022, we had almost 5,000 staff hours. 1,700 of them were alarm calls. All right, we treat alarm calls just like a structure fire, right? Because we don't know what the true, you know, outcome of that call is going to be, right? So you get a full response if your alarm goes off.
It may be a dumb question, but does an alarm call come through a company?
The majority of them
I don't
do.
have an alarm, obviously,
Yes.
so I don't
Yes, they
know.
come through alarm monitoring companies.
Okay, so they go directly to you.
Well, they go to the alarm monitoring company, then to 911 and Red Deer, then to us.
Okay, so is there anywhere in between there that it can be intercepted?
I'm going to get to that, but
Okay.
yes. No, though, that's fine, yes.
Yeah.
So the alarm's gonna go off in your house. Now, the alarm monitoring companies are supposed to call the contact number that you give them, okay? But what we're hearing is they're busy. A lot of the alarm companies, monitoring companies are very busy. We'll get there and the resident will literally be standing on the curb pointing at their phone like they're on hold with the alarm company. Or the alarm companies will phone, but they'll phone from a 1-800 number.
Who's going to answer it?
Nobody's gonna answer
Yeah.
it in today's world,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they don't have designated phone numbers, so it's 1-800 whatever on Tuesday, and Thursday they call it from a different number. Still a 1-800 number, but it's a different number. So they can't program it in their phone to say that it's
Right.
Vivid monitoring or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
So
Maybe we should send them the bill.
well, we're gonna, unfortunately, they're not my customers. They're not my customers, so we're gonna get to possibly invoice. No, that's perfectly fine. Hope I answered your question.
Cliff, I had one as well. Back on slide 9, the alarm calls versus total calls, you have the addresses with more than one response. What does that mean? Is that just exactly as it sounds, where over the course of the year you have?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. We've been to, we've got some problem areas, locations. I believe the majority of that, though, is that the alarms are actually faulty. They have faulty detectors, or maybe their annunciator panels are faulty. Still is driving those calls, unfortunately, and we have to respond, right? Okay, the next slide's a little busy. It kind of gives you the indication as to how many calls of other types we are going to. You can see our medical calls are a little high. Again, people drive calls. The volume of people drive calls. And in the summertime, we do more medical calls because there's more people in town. And some of them aren't behaving so well, but at the end of the day, there's just more population in town, more bodies, more calls. All right. I am looking into a couple of potential areas where we can improve the number of medical calls with AHS. It's a little hard to pin them down sometimes, but I am working on one initiative with them also, so we'll see where that goes. All right.
I have a question on that slide,
Absolutely.
if you don't mind, Cliff. On the MVC, I'm assuming that's motor vehicle?
Motor vehicle collisions, yes.
Yes. So was there a reason that it was so much lower in 2024, or is somebody else taking more of the calls?
No, nobody's taking any more of the calls. That's, yeah.
I just thought maybe it was, you know what I mean?
No,
like
yeah, no,
divided
great
up more?
question. I
Yeah.
gotta be honest, I didn't really notice that, but
Yeah.
yes, they are way
Like
down.
that is substantially low,
Yeah.
like a
Yes,
third, right?
it is.
And one more question is, what's a good intent call?
So that will be something like, you see smoke coming from your neighbor's back deck. You calling it as a fire, we get there and he's burning off his barbecue, or it's just smoke from whatever, right? Who knows? Or I thought I heard somebody screaming, or I thought I heard an alarm.
And it looks as though with the good intent calls, you didn't start tracking those until 2024.
Correct. We would just put them down as the way they came in, but with our new software program, and I'm going to touch base with that a little bit later, with our new software program, we can drill right down into those calls and see exactly what the intent of the call was. Okay, so definition of a false alarm, there is a few of them out there. This is the one that I believe kind of hits the nail on the head for us anyway. Means any notification to the fire department, whoever so triggered or received respecting the existence of a fire, risk of fire or other related hazard in circumstances where no such fire, risk of fire or other related hazard in fact exists, okay? So yes, there is smoke coming out of your toaster, but I've never been to a call that a burning piece of toast caused a structure fire. Like, was there smoke? Yes, but there really was no threat. And that's kind of where we're trying to target here. Okay, yes, your alarm went off, but is your alarm faulty? Is your annunciator pattern faulty? The system worked, right? It called the alarm company called 911, 911 called us, we went. Everything worked except that first little piece there that kind of triggered the whole events, right? So we want to put a couple initiatives. Yes.
One question.
Yes.
CO2, does that fall in that same category of false alarm?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and there's a lot of them also. Yeah. Yes. It's shocking how many we go that are real calls that like detect CO and you know ATCO comes or whatever the situation may be, but a lot of them are false alarm. I mean, dead batteries are always a good one. So, right. Okay. So what our intent here is to really do a real public education piece, right? Get on social media, educate the residents of what kind of volume of calls these false alarms are really driving for their fire department. You know, we're a big enough department now, there's probably very few people in town that doesn't know somebody that's on that fire department or lives next door to them, right? So if we can get out in the public and do some social media posts and really educate the public on the resources that are being tied up and truly their tax dollars that are being tied up paying these people, you know, to leave their homes, come to the hall for really no reason, right? We got some door knockers that we want to hand out. You know, if we go to a call, even just in the neighborhood, throw some on the, while we're out there, throw some door knockers out there. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about our software program. It's called First Due. Alluded to it a little earlier. The program is designed, we do our payroll on there, we do all our runs on there. And part of that is a module called Community Connect. And the big property of that is public education and prevention. So if you own a business, you can go on there and book your own fire inspection. Okay, we allot slots each week to do fire inspection. So you can go on there, right? There's some education pieces on there. There's information. There's a blank inspection on there. Sorry, it'll tell you what we're going to be looking for when we come. All right. Another part of that piece is that you can register your alarm on there, okay? So you go on there, you tell us, you register your home. I shouldn't say just your alarm. You register your home. So Councilor Burns, I'm not sure where you live, doesn't really much matter, but you can go on there and say, I have 3 people that live in my home, 2 adults, 1 child, and 2 dogs. You can even take a picture of your dog and put it on there if you want, right? My child sleeps in the basement corner, southwest corner, whatever the situation is. Information piece that for us, okay, we do get a call there, very, very important, right? We know that 3 people live there. If there's 3 people on the curb, generally speaking, we know that property is empty, okay? So you go on there, you register your home on there. Another big piece on this is that if we get called to your property, you will receive an email to say we are responding to your property. Now, First Due is shouldn't even hate to say this too loud, it's an American company. So they're struggling a little bit with our cell carriers. Across the border, you actually get a text message, right? They're working on that throughout the province or throughout Canada to send a text message to indicate to you that you're getting the fire department is responding. So in that situation, you don't have to wait for your alarm company to call. You can call 911 and say, Sylvan Lake Fire Department's responding to whatever your address is. It's a false alarm. So they can stand us down very, very soon after, even before they tone us out. So that's going to be a huge piece. They're really working on the cell carriers now. They just haven't quite got it there yet. But a real prevention piece and also a real information piece for us. So there's a lot of information on that property. You can put in where your gas shutoff is, where electrical shutoff is, all right? And way back in the day, you used to put stickers in your windows. Been in this business for a few years now. To put where your children were sleeping. Well, we all know where that went after a while in today's world. So nobody wants to advertise where their children are sleeping. So that piece is great too. So, all right. So, and we can also send out, and you don't have to be hooked up to a monitoring company to register. You can just register your home, all right? And then we can send out some prevention pieces on that. We can send out mass emails, Fire Prevention Week. We kind of send out what are we targeting for Fire Prevention Week. Okay. So next steps, if council would like to move forward on this, we will get that educational piece going. Okay, we'll get some social media posts out there. We'll do as much as we can to get on the residents. We talked today about, going to the Legion meetings and getting out there in the public, going to schools, getting some door knockers dropped off there and some pamphlets. There's a QR code that we're working on that will link you right to the Community Connect. All the information's on there. It promotes to register your home.
Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with this program, is it possible to put a link on, like, I don't know, through our own, through the town and that sort of thing? I mean, it's obviously a town thing.
Yes.
But is there a way to link it to, like, I was just thinking of the chamber, and businesses and that sort of thing? Like, where somebody could just hit a link and fill out their form and it would be done?
Yeah, I'd have to double check that, but yes, I believe so.
Because that would be really helpful for, like, even as a whole chamber to be part of their service, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To safety and so that,
Yeah,
if you don't mind checking that,
Yeah,
that would
absolutely, I
be
will.
fantastic. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. The next piece of this is where it's going to get a little dicey. We want to review our bylaw, and you're going to get 1 free false alarm, and then we're going to charge. Going to have to look at the flat rates. A lot of departments have went this way. I know City of Edmonton went that way. Olds has gone that way. They're paid on call firefighters they're getting burnt out, and inevitably they're not responding to these calls. And so they went the educational piece. It just didn't work, and some people it just doesn't work with. But move to that next piece where we can, go to a call, and if it is deemed a false alarm, we educate, and if you don't, adhere to the rules, we'll send you an invoice.
Okay, so one of my buildings, for example, last year had, it was actually removed completely because we were doing renovations. However, it was still triggering to the, I don't even know if it was you, and if it was, I'm so sorry, I apologize to the fire department, but for sure to the RCMP. And it got to a point where the RCMP officer came down and he said, we have been trying to call forever, just to our Bucks text line, but I didn't even have equipment in there at all. And it was just constantly triggering a call at a set time every single day. And then we called the company and said, can you please stop this? Like, it's harassing and wasting everyone's time. It still kept going for another 3 months.
Some
What about that
leniency will
situation?
have to be shown here, obviously. There is some one-offs. We went to a home, they swore up and down they were never hooked up to an alarm company. They bought the property, and I checked, they bought the property 2 years prior to that, never paid a bill, and we got called there. So they're looking at us, I'm looking at them. It's awkward, right? So we're gonna have to show some leniency here. And again, the educational piece, then get a hold of your company and say, listen, stop it, right? Yeah, so it isn't, we're not gonna hold a hard line here right off. There'll have to be an educational piece there for everybody.
When we go through that process, when you bring that report back and during that bylaw review, I would assume you're gonna put as much information about what our comparison communities are doing.
Absolutely.
It sounds to me like you've already done some of that work to figure that out, but I think that's an important piece to see here too.
Yeah, the ones that I really like to compare us to are the paid on-call departments. And I don't want to, say that Red Deer should go to 50% of their calls are false alarms. Outside of actual trucks leaving the hall though, their men and women are already in the halls, right? So it's a little different comparison than what we're trying to accomplish here, but yes, absolutely I will.
Yeah, so this is the world I live in every day. I fully support some sort of fine. At the end of the day, it's the resident or the business owner's responsibility. It's another utility in your home. I can't speak for all companies, but most give you warning that something's gone wrong, whether it's a battery, whether it's a sensor. So it's on the homeowner for sure, 100%, to make sure that it's taken care of. And yeah, something I would fully support.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. No, I was going to say, I totally agree with you, Councillor Burns. I think that those people are the contractors, right? You're the customer. There has to be an educational piece on their part too, right? I mean, we went to numerous calls. They didn't even know the fire department was going to show up. And I think, well, you pay every month, and what did you think was going to happen, right? So I don't know what their mindset is there, but I think there needs to be an educational piece on the companies and on the residents, for sure.
How does, so when you were to invoice them, how is that, do you invoice them according to who went? And how much
What I've seen at other municipalities,
Yeah.
it's a flat rate.
Oh,
So it's,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not per person, per truck.
Right.
If we could really generate some revenue, then I could
Yeah.
send the whole fleet and 30 firefighters, but no, it's basically a flat rate. It's like a parking ticket. I mean, it's a little more than that. I think it's $250 or something like
Okay.
that. But I mean, we can make the fee.
But it's
whatever.
not so little that it's not gonna matter.
No, it's not.
You know,
No.
cause sometimes when it moves up, oh, well, I just paid $50, that's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
I'm not gonna worry about it, I'm not gonna do anything about it, but, yeah.
To be honest, I never really looked at the fine portion that much in some of these bylaws. I just kind of looked at how they implemented that.
Right.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little ahead of where we're, I think once it comes back, I'm very curious to see as well what that schedule looks like. Because I think there are so many possibilities and exceptions and education that needs to happen first, but.
Absolutely.
And I definitely think it's something when the report comes back to see what the possibility is. I think it's something that needs to be at least addressed. Councillor Parsons, you had a question?
Go back to 1965 and not have any alarms.
Well, I think part of the reason that the alarms are going up too, like the volume is going up, technology is, obviously the last 5 years is when, and Councilor Mearns, you can obviously attest to this. I don't think probably too many people sitting here don't have a camera, you know, on a monitoring company or something in their home. And insurance companies now, from what I understand, there's a lot of insurance companies that are giving a discounted home insurance rate if you're hooked up to a monitoring system. So I think there's a few reasons why we're seeing the escalation in call volume, right? And we all know technology never fails. So here we are, right? So, yeah.
I think we've asked all the questions.
I think you probably have. Does anybody have any other questions for me?
Any thoughts? Councilor Mearns?
So if we can't seem to educate, and whatever that means, fines, whatever, next step is what we've talked about for years of a full-time.
Well, I think probably the next step is to put career firefighters in the hall during the day, right? Because taking men and women from their jobs is you know, some employers, and I know we are very, very fortunate. We've got a great daytime response, an amazing daytime response, but a portion of those are town staff, all right? So we're very fortunate in that regard, right? But if you're getting docked an hour every time you leave work, that doesn't sit so well with the employer or the employee. Mm-hmm. So that's generally the next step. And that poses its own issues. But you're still going to need those paid on calls to back those people up. Because even if you put 3 or 4 in the hall, that's only getting you 1 truck. So if it's any major call at all, you're going to need more than that. More firefighters than that, so, yeah.
Well, anything else for Chief Brosnan? No. Thanks, Cliff.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, next up on the agenda, we have the Housing Summit. I believe that's Ms. Devlin. Ms. Devlin, Ms. Lemanis, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Just give us 1 second. Okay. So tonight, Trina and I are here to discuss the Housing Summit that we've been discussing, and Council's been eagerly waiting for more information from administration regarding what the plans for this are. And as indicated at the last council meeting, we said we'd like to bring this back to just ensure that the direction that administration is looking at taking aligns with the goals and expected outcomes that council has or envisions for this session. So the idea of hosting some form of housing meeting where we could bring together developers and housing providers came up in a committee of the whole discussion at one of our half sessions that we had last year. And that's where this stemmed from. So since then, administration, both planning and development and WCC staff have been working together to come up with the goals and outcomes we'd like to see from a session like this and what kind of value we think it will have for community members. So our goals, we've come up with a few, but we're looking at to provide information on housing challenges and needs to our community members, those interested in providing housing or those actively providing housing within the community. Also to discuss opportunities for housing development across the housing continuum, again, opportunity discussion, barriers to housing development, that sort of thing. And identify potential partners for affordable housing development. So again, moving forward, who might have an interest? We've heard from different groups in the community, but we see an opportunity to bring some of those people together and maybe help forge some partnerships or some working relationships for them. Attendees, so from administration's perspective, we are thinking this would be something that we would invite some of the builders to, any of our current housing providers, and agencies and group with an interest in housing. So this could include any of our social service agencies like AHS or the Red Deer Housing Authority, and community groups, which could include some of our churches or the Lions Club, which have been vocal in saying that they're interested in some form of housing project. We've identified some topics for discussion. We've come up with 5 as an initial sort of starting point that we've kicked around. The first one being housing needs assessment findings. So we do have a draft back of our new updated housing needs assessment. We think it would be really great to set the tone for the meeting with some context in terms of a snapshot of where we're at and what the housing landscape looks like within the community for everybody attending. This will be new information for them, although for some of them not a surprise, but we thought it would be really good to have a presentation related to that. We'd like to have a discussion on barriers to developing housing, and I put in here across the whole housing continuum because there'll be various interests, again, unless the desire is to target this specifically to affordable housing or some other specified topic after our discussion with council. We're thinking that we'd like to hear from some of the groups on what they see as some of the barriers to developing housing, especially the ones with an interest in developing housing that may not be developers, what challenges they're facing. Opportunities for housing development, again, that's where we're hoping to have a bit of a discussion and see maybe if some of those interested parties start to emerge in terms of where there might be interest or desire, but maybe needing some more help or connections in order to make something come to fruition. A conversation around increasing affordable housing, so again, non-market specific housing, so like the foundation and the lodge, if they're looking to expand, we'd like to hear what that looks like, or the Housing Society, Sylvan Lake Housing Society, I know they have some plans for expansion, again, hearing some of those plans that they have, and again, what challenges they might be facing or where we might be able to assist them. And then as the other half of that, attainable housing. So again, market rate housing and what I know Trina has discussed with council in terms of attainable as being lower price point, lower rental rate. So not true non-market affordable housing, but attainable at a lower price point within the market itself. And then the last item, we'd like to have a bit of a discussion and make sure everybody is aware of our HAF initiatives and any of the programs currently in place and how that could help them with any of the projects they might be considering or future things. I've also asterisked here a presentation from CMHC. Trina has been trying really hard to get feedback from them over the last year about whether or not we could get a presentation from them on all of their programs and the funding opportunities. They're very difficult to nail down and with a lot of changeover in their staff. I think this is about the 4th person Trina's been pushed off to, and we're still not sure, depending on when we host the summit, because with the election upcoming, they've gone into what they call caretaker mode. So they can sort of lightly take care of any things, but they even had to cancel our regular 2-month HAF meeting. They couldn't even just meet with us to see how things were going. So we're not really sure if this is possible, but we do have a contact person or some willingness to help us. I'm not sure we actually have a name yet, but there may be an opportunity. We envision this as a half-day session, so 2.5 to 3 hours potentially, depending on what information we think is going to be discussed and how long we think we need for each of the topics. And right now we're kind of looking at May as a potential target time frame for when we can have this. So from council tonight, what we're looking for, there were 3 questions we had put in the report for you. The first one we'd like to chat about is what goals and outcomes council would like to see from the summit. So I'm just going to put up the ones that I talked about, but I would like to hear from council if there is anything in particular that you would like to see as key outcomes or goals from this session. We would really love to hear that.
Any thoughts before I throw my piece in? I think the priority for me, and you really sort of hit it with number 2 there, is just understanding what's possible. And I think that's the biggest thing that that I struggle with when I'm thinking about housing, affordable housing, you know, is what's possible. What's possible in terms of development, what's possible in terms of, you know, what we can use these monies for. Like, I want everyone who's involved to understand what the possibilities are. And I think that's the problem right now, is not everybody understands what we can do. A lot of the conversations we have when it comes to affordable housing is, you know, what's actually, what is affordable housing, what's actually achievable. So I think more than anything, just coming out of it with a common understanding as to what we can actually accomplish would be, for me, the biggest goal.
For me, it's, I really like the identify potential partners, because I think it seems that people don't know who each other are. And if we can bring people together, hopefully, hopefully people come, because, that's always the thing, right? Is, yeah, you know, just because you make it doesn't mean they'll come. But it's, to me, if groups could work together and, like Councillor Payne said, know what's there, know what's not there, what is attainable housing, how can they be part of or be able to develop that? To me, that's really a big part of it, is identifying. When I read that, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I thought of immediately as soon as I read this, because I know people who've talked to me, and you know those people, and so and that's exactly it. They just don't know. And so I think getting it out there, you know, giving the information, providing the information, and then being able to. And another thing for me is just the whole streamlining application, you know, and I don't know if it fits in here in goals or if it fits in any specific topics. I didn't quite know where I would put that, but just streamlining and for everybody to know the process and to be informed at the same time, so that people aren't kind of, everybody's in the woods. Does that make sense?
The goals, all three of those are important goals. I agree with Councillor Payne that number 2 is the basis of it all, and the rest can fall into place. But they're all important. So somehow, if we can, I do agree with Councillor Payne. The first one is finding out exactly what we're looking for.
I guess just to, not really adding to a goal or part of a goal, but when you talk about the housing continuum, I would just want to see a broad spectrum of building providers. You know, we hear from lots of our main developers in town, but some of the smaller ones, because you know, they're going to see different things and different opportunities than the big developers are going to see. So I would just want to ensure when we're choosing who's coming, or if it's open, that's fine, but that we ensure that we've got, you know, the company that's building half a dozen homes a year compared to, you know, a Laybon or a Melcor or something. So.
Yeah, I think all your goals are great. I'm sitting here thinking about what a summit is, how many I've gone to, and it's just holding those spaces open for getting the players in the room, and then maybe from the town side, the biggest issue that I find when I go to a summit is that whoever's facilitating it usually takes over the dominance, but really you find a lot of the answers in giving the others that space to talk about, you know, what are their issues, what are they facing, what are some solutions that they're seeing in other communities, and maybe having that unique, not bear pit session, but I don't know what you want to call it, but having it an open invitation so that all the players can be there. And you can hear all the upcoming ideas, especially the new blood that's, like Councillor Mern said, can bring those unique ideas forward. But I think everything else is fantastic. The biggest takeaway for a summit for me is always being able to talk to my peers. Even when we go to our, you know, whatever we go to, it's always in the relationships in the room, not just the speaker. So just holding space for that extra time for everyone to kind of speak up, roundtable style.
Any other thoughts?
Okay. Great, we got some good notes on that, and I think that's a really good point, Councillor Jakin. We'll make sure we build in a bit of a networking time frame, like some extra breaks with coffee and allow for a bit of networking time, because I do see some value in that too, where they can make connections once they know who has similar interests through conversation. So, great.
So, Ms. Devlin, you have indicated that May was your target date. How firm are we in pursuing May as our target date? Is that?
Well, administration, once we find out from council tonight and see what changes or what things we might need to make, administration's going to go back, we'll meet, and then we'll set some parameters and see if we can find a date that we think this might be possible. And then if so, we'll make sure we let council know at the next council meeting, and or sooner if we have a date set, and we can go from there.
Got to get this happening. Got to get this done.
Well, we will get it done.
Councillor Dakin?
What about the idea of allowing like investors or those who do mortgages or, let's saying they can participate too, because they have a network of investors that might not know about this?
Yep, we would definitely be open to anyone who's interested in coming to participate if there are individuals. What I do think is likely to happen, Trina and I have kind of discussed that it's likely what we see is we're going to see some of those connections or some interest. Some people might attend and just decide that this isn't something that they're either able to help contribute to past this initial conversation, or it doesn't fit in with what they're doing in the near future. But we would like a call of interest that at the end of the session, that we get a list of names and contact information, and then we might look at holding follow-up meetings after that to further refine, again, especially if there's interest in a type of, it might be non-market affordable housing or something like that. I mean, that would be our ideal goal, I think, is to move towards that. So suddenly we get people who are interested in actually trying to achieve something like that. So yeah, I don't expect it to be necessarily a one and done. We kind of hope this starts the process, and then we can help facilitate something from there.
It'll be very interesting to get a group to figure out what the consensus is on what affordable housing is. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yep. The second question we wanted to ask council was whether or not we got the attendees right from what you see. Councillor Dakin, thank you, you've already added to this. Is there anyone else that council, I know you've mentioned a couple times you've been talking to interested individuals. Is there anyone else in terms of the scope of the individuals we might look to be inviting that you would like to see included?
I think the list is quite extensive. And I think the possibility for some of these social service agencies, particularly ones that are focused on special needs housing, focused on specialized housing, I think is an important piece to have in this as well.
We do expect to put out an open ad in the newspaper for anyone that does want to attend. So, if there is general interest, people will be welcome to come as well. And the last question, and we may have covered this already, but any specific topics other than those we kind of listed that you would really like to see discussed at the session?
I don't know if it would be the right time to do it or not, so I'd leave it up to administration's judgment, but just maybe the initiatives that are underway or that have been taken in the last 12 months, you're going to have a group with their ears on and be able to share, what's taken place and what's to come as a possibility. It might not fit in, but it might be a great opportunity to provide that to that group.
Can I just ask for a little bit of clarity in terms of initiatives underway, in terms of things that the town is already doing?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Like specific to our, more or less our half initiatives that we're doing in the project?
Yep.
Yes, we
100%.
absolutely will talk about those things for sure. Yeah.
I think looking at your list for discussion, I don't think a 2.5 hours half-day session is going to cover that. Like, I think there's an enormous amount of information plus a networking opportunity. I suspect you're going to have, I suspect it's going to be a full day. Because some of these issues are ones that can that the conversation piece can be quite extensive. Yeah.
I agree, because I think people who are interested in this, they're going to have a lot of questions on every single one of those topics. And so and which is what is most beneficial, right? And what really does create that community of growth together. So I think it's probably not going to be done in half a day.
I think too, one of the things that I'd like to see come out of this is a common understanding of what it is we're wanting to do here. And I think that in and of itself could take a fair amount of time to get to that common understanding. Any other thoughts? This side of the table? No?
Councillor Payne, if I might ask, what is the common understanding we hope to get out of this?
Here's the thing. When people ask the questions about what affordable housing is, they all think that it's cheap rent, or they all think that it's an inexpensive place to live. And I think that's a definition that needs to be clarified. There needs to be an understanding too that the town is not going to get into the owning a bunch of properties game, which is another thing that I get asked on a frequent basis, because the clientele that I'm involved with are young people moving out into the world, and they're struggling with that. So I think that's another piece, just understanding what affordable housing is, understanding what the challenges are, the common challenges are, knowing that we're going to rely on builders and developers to do this. It's not, in as much as we have funding to be able to support and to be able to encourage with the HAF initiatives, it's other people that need to make the decisions, that other people that need to do the building. And I don't think that's understood by a whole lot of folks. So I think those are the pieces that need to become the education pieces for everyone else, so that it's not people looking at us around the horseshoe and wondering, why don't we regulate rentals? Why don't we come up with better places to live? There's no place for me to live in Sylvan Lake. Those things need to be discussed.
And I think there's probably some challenges around the definition for affordable housing, because depending on the housing providers, the ones that are definitely doing non-market stuff, it looks different depending on who their clientele is. And often it's 30% of someone's income. So depending on how much that individual makes, they're going to pay different amounts of rent. True affordable housing is 30%, not paying more than 30%. That I don't know how many providers, again, non-market only. We do have some market apartment rentals now through CMHC's MLI Select program, that they're building units, and a percentage of them, there might be, it'll be under 10%, but approximately we'll say 10% of the units have to be affordable as per CMHC's definition. Trina can probably describe that better than I can. I might let you jump in here.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Devlin. So CMHC defines affordable units for purposes of their MLI Select as being 30% of the median renter income. So that is the median renter income that's listed in the federal census data. So currently that is $66,000 per year is what our median renter income. So when you take 30% of that, I think it comes out to be about $1,650 a month is what they would consider to be an affordable rate. Some of the builders that we know have taken part of the MLI Select, they can rent their units at lower rates than that. WCC just gave me some data today that the Blue Water over in Beacon Hill rent their one-bedroom units for about $1,010 a month. I think the one-bedroom units are going for. So that's quite a bit below the $1,650 threshold. So.
And you can see how $66,000 is high. I think for thinking of income for people that need affordable housing, it is a high number. And so I think there's a wide spectrum that affordable actually covers, which is why it's hard to clearly define what that is or why there's so much confusion about it when you talk about it. I do have one other question from what you were saying, Councillor Payne. I'm curious if council's hope is that there will be an identified affordable project. Is that council's sort of desired outcome, is that we're going to make our way to something specific out of this?
I think that's a dream. It's not really a hope. Okay. It would be absolutely wonderful to have that happen, but I think we're all, smart enough to realize we're not going to come out of this with, a list of opportunities and projects that are going to be started. So it's a dream, not a hope, but,
I guess what my desire or goal or dream or whatever, yes, that would be an ultimate dream. But for me, it's people to feel connected, people that have a better understanding of what's really happening, so that it's not just a whole bunch of Facebook yip yap. It's more about like people who are educated, people who understand, and have a resource to get information from, because it's ever changing. So that to me would be, like when I think of a summit, when I go to a summit, I go to be educated and hopefully connected, better connected, so that even if I don't know the answer, I know somebody who knows the answer. And so to me, that would be my personal kind of view of what could come out of what could come out of.
I echo what Councillor Reeling has to say. I think that it would be great to have some connections made there, which would create, I think, some of more affordable housing options for some people. But in the back of my mind still, when I think about this, I would hope that some seniors facility would come from it. We need better seniors facilities, absolutely, in this community that are affordable, and all of it. But for me, that would be a great win.
Great. Well, I think we have everything we need, unless there's any other questions. Excellent. Well, we'll come back with more information, hopefully at the next council meeting, with a little more detail for you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have the advocacy priorities. So let's begin with Councillor Reeling in healthcare.
Okay, well, I'm really looking forward to our further conversation about advocacy, because we talked about it and kind of where we want to go as a council. But after discussing all this, I heard the $15 million out of the budget came 8 new urgent cares in Alberta, which is wonderful. But my question is, why were we not on that list? Because we talked to the minister, we had those conversations, but that is part of our conversation that we are going to have regarding it. Why weren't we on the list? What would have qualified us to be on that list, and those sorts of things. But I was surprised at some of them, not Edmonton and Calgary, but one of them, Cold Lake and Fort McMurray, they each got a new urgent care. And so, the goal again is so that everybody can have access at a cheaper rate, because what they've been monitoring is the emergency rooms and the amount of money that is being spent in emergency rooms. Hence the reason to bring in urgent cares, because that eliminates a lot. Just Sylvan Lake alone. And we don't have an urgent care. We have an advanced ambulatory care service. We do not have the ambulance bay and all those things. Plus, one other thing was the $2 million was to One Health Airdrie's integrated primary and urgent care facility. So that is another level. Like, they've had an urgent care and a very high operating one, but now this is one more level, integrating both primary care and urgent care. So part of it will be AHS, another part will be primary care, where it will all work together. So it'll be interesting to see that grow and see what becomes of it. So yes. Sure, I might not know the answer.
Just curious, is there a plan for growth for the urgent care? Like, if we say we want an urgent care with the growth of our community, in the building that it's in now, is that good enough? And does an urgent care need an ambulance bay?
Yes.
And is that, then my question circles back to, is that building big enough?
Well, and that's what we are doing, our admin is doing research on that currently, because remember when we talked about it for advocacy? That was what were the big questions. Would it be a suitable building? And if so, what needs to change, or, you know, in order to just have an ambulance bay? So that's a good question, but that is part of what is being researched. And it also, the whole question about why weren't we chosen, what would have qualified us, and those sorts of things. So that is part of that whole equation that we are in the process of getting information on. But good question.
Any other questions? No? Okay, let's move on to tourism-based communities and Councillor Mearns.
Yeah, nothing really new. I know I missed the advocacy meeting that council had, so I know we're waiting for some more information on that and what those priorities look like. I will mention, if you hadn't seen it yet, we did get a letter from the Minister of Tourism Sport about winter games, summer games. Tight timeline on it, but I trust administration's looking at it to get back, but it was nice to receive that regardless from him, and we're on his radar a little bit, so.
Okay, I guess I'm up. New high school. So, an exciting amount of progress. If you really want to call it progress, I guess it's an exciting beginning. Being given a grant to do some pre-planning, and the pre-planning really is just making sure that we're starting to get our ducks in a row. We are still a ways away from any sort of actual plan, but it kind of puts us in a bit of a situation where we need to start getting our things lined up. Some of the issues that came out of that was the districts that are involved need to sit down and figure out some of the things that they need to do with each other in their partnerships. We need to figure out some pieces with the school site, how it's going to work, and site confirmation. There's some discussion of the services and what needs to happen before anything else can happen, and confirmation of the partnerships with that are involved. So a lot of conversation that has to happen before the bigger conversations happen, but some things that we need to start getting ourselves moving towards. Ms. Devlin, am I missing any part of that?
No, I think you covered most of it.
Yeah. So it's an exciting time because usually this means that in the next budget cycle, it's likely that more announcements will come. But if I've learned anything in my 25 years of being involved in school building, don't hold your breath. Just know that it's possible. But we're an inch closer than we were 3 weeks ago, and that's very exciting. So we're going to keep working on it. The minister, Mr. Dreeshen, is going to be coming to the school on Friday, where I'm going to have an opportunity to chew his ear off and show him around the school, show him what it's like to be in a chemistry class with 41 kids, and to no longer have a library that's been turned into 3 classrooms. So I'm very excited about having that happen. I'm going to keep him at the school until the final bell so he can see what it's like having 850 kids walking through hallways that were built for 500. So we're going to try and make him understand. So that is it for me. Do you guys want to take a recess for a few minutes, or do you want to just keep going? Everyone's good? Good, Parse? Good. Okay, well, let's keep going. Council reports, verbal reports. Who would like to begin this fracas? Excellent. Councillor Dakin, here we go.
Only because mine is so short. I had a hub meeting, and I absolutely love my hub meetings. One of the big takeaways from that is that the taxi program again, is very, very well utilized, but there is a waiting list, and if we could find any money at all, that program would so benefit from it. So taxi program is lean and being utilized to the max. That is my big, big ask. And I went to the 25th anniversary of Community Partners, and it was so great. I'm so proud to have them in our community. I think everybody knows that, but it was their new office, which is by Shoppers Drug Mart. It's a little smaller, but they do have a backup bay there for all kinds of things for the community. But great work to them. That's it.
Okay. Councillor Mearns.
Looking right at me, may as well go. Pogettle Park Advisory Committee meeting, was just an update that that we have a new contractor for design phase. And we put some options out on what the next phase might look like. It's designed this year, scheduled for 2026. We also had the conversation about budget implications as an entire committee. So Mr. Lebsack's gonna talk to the designer, see what we can move and change around and what that might affect budget-wise positively, not negatively. So that will come back to council at some point. But it was a good meeting. Also had Tourism Development Committee. It was just an update really from RCT on everything that was going on. Someone will probably talk about the chamber. There's lots of changes there, so we heard about that. And Dairy Queen is revamping a whole renovation of their kitchen, so they're excited about that. They're excited that they don't have road construction this year, except the final lift of asphalt. Very appreciative. I guess some trees were removed, and so the town put in a couple benches instead of, and very appreciative for that. And yeah, and just a lot of business getting ready for summer and what that might look like, challenges with lake levels and equipment that's going in the lake and businesses that rely on the lake, so lots of conversation around that. But it was a good meeting. That was it.
Good. Councillor Rilling.
Leaders Caucus, I really enjoyed it in Edmonton, and takeaways were, we were introduced to a game, I think we talked about it last time with Mayor Hansen, Common Ground Toolkit. I think we should get one of those. It's so good because it creates great conversation. Mastering conflict, mental health, the role of the leader, they set the tone and influences mental health at work. Also, and self-care, big, huge part of mental health for leaders. HEART, which is our health, attraction, and retention team. Always forget how it goes. We're revisiting our terms of reference. And last time we had 2 new members that came, 2 of spouses of doctors. So that was really, and they want to be involved. They said, you made us feel so incredibly welcome, we want to pass that on. So that's a really cool thing. And they're just excited to do it, like they're putting their hands up for everything. I'll help with that, I'll do that, you know. So it's great to be a part of that. Of course, we had our advocacy and the Dear Wisdom of Betty. Economic development meeting, she had a new project plan, and I believe we heard it here at our meeting last month, or so I don't need to go into that. The Cape, they received their NRED grant, and so we as a community have put in our application to have our business profiles, where it usually costs about $16,000, but if we do it through Cape, it saves us 10. So, and it's already in our budget from last year, so Amanda put that application in for us to have our business profiles done. Chamber, as Councillor Mearns mentioned, new executive. They already have a strat plan. I went to the meeting this last week and a couple weeks ago, I guess now, and they're just so excited because there's so many new people, and they have Jeff is the president, and Christy Loy and Kate Douglas are VPs, and they are just excited about everything chamber. So it's really great. And it's, over and over they said, it's because of the hard work that the previous committee did throughout this last year. There was a lot of things that needed to be done. And now they can really go places. Spark meeting, we planned and talked about Walk the Talk and how effective it's been in the years past. Love being on that committee, and both Councillor Dakin and I are going to be doing the judging of, they're getting lots of good applications of, yes, Spark Awards. So that is upcoming. Thank you.
That's a lot. Let's see what Councillor Parsons has to say.
Well, okay, the President's Forum that Councillor Reeling was alluding to with the up in Edmonton was very interesting. The game we discussed, but the one thing is, I think we should be pretty happy with where we are, because some of the abuse that some of the candidates and elected officials take in other communities is not what we see here. We get some just on rant and rave, really, that's all it counts. Yeah. We don't, I don't get much of that. Other than that, it was very good. The first day, the eggs were a little runny. And Mr. McIntyre made sure that we all knew that. It improved through the bacon and the ham and everything. Got better as the week went on. So, but it was good. Next was RMA back in Edmonton, and it's a real interesting group. That was my first time, and everybody who's gone to that has said it's such a different experience. Same problems, just bigger, wider scope. But real interesting, you know, like I said, my first time, so I enjoyed it. I was the only one there because everybody else is busy, so I went. And once again, the eggs were better and the breakfast was exactly the same as it is every one. Okay. Then right from RMA to Mugs in Drumheller. And we have come in the last 3 years with Mugs, we have taken 20 years of going along into turning it into a real focus group, which is really kind of fun. It's all due to the fact that there's a new dam on the horizon, and it'll take 10, 12 years, but it's there. But it's really brought everybody together into focus. And in reality, Sylvan Lake is not as connected to the river as most of those communities are, but we are, and we're a player, and water is that important, and we are in the basin, so it's really good to see the focus of that group coming together. So Rudy, our CAO, is very connected and very passionate, so there are good things coming out of Mugs. Community Futures, once again, focus has come in. We've got through COVID, the Triple RF program, which is a program that's similar to the $40,000. You keep the 20 and you get free money and whatnot. But you have to pay it back. We get those views of the ones that everybody's slowly creeping out of that, and our loan portfolio is growing, and we've gone where we've been trying to get the South involved. Looks like Didsbury is coming on better, and Sundre. So that part in Community Futures, and hopefully at one of our gatherings, Kelly, the head of the Community Futures, she's going to come and address council just to show exactly what we do, what it's for, and give some how Sylvan Lake's involved and how many clients we have here and the percentages. So that's all. Just and I've got nothing the rest of April. That's it.
Well, I'm glad your eggs were good. And the second one.
They were better.
They were better. Okay. I didn't get any eggs, but I did get a couple of pretty good meals. Not at the library. The library was no food, no eggs. So, but it would be. Library was the only thing that I've done committee-wise that we haven't already talked about, and they were very excited with the announcement. I believe they may have made an assumption about the high school absolutely being an absolute, and they thought, oh, new high school, new library. We quelled that a little bit, so worked on that. Mid-Sized Cities Mayor's Caucus went to a meeting in Edmonton with some ministers and some MLAs, and that was pretty cool. Had some good conversations. Minister McIver stole my opening line, which was quite something. I was very impressed by that. He actually had a good line to say for once. Regional Mayor's Caucus meeting was pretty good. Went to that, had a really good meal. There wasn't any eggs in that either. But Kelly from Community Futures was the presenter that night and had a lot of good things to say. And yeah, that was pretty much all I've done that hasn't been discussed. But being the last person to speak on this thing, I get to do something that we didn't do in the beginning of this meeting that we absolutely should have, because I was distracted, which is my norm. We didn't welcome Don Phillips, and we absolutely should have. We haven't quite gotten rid of Betty. She's still here. Love you, Betty. But Don Phillips, our new CAO, is with us in her very first meeting, and she only said Smoky Lake once. But welcome, Don. We are keeping a running total for how many times you say Smoky Lake, and when you hit 10, you owe us all lunch. That's the deal. So welcome. We are extremely excited to have you, and we've all been very excited to see what you're going to do with us. It's going to be fun. So welcome, and yeah, good luck. We are at the upcoming meetings and events. I'm not going to go through any of them, to be honest. We can all read. So they are all there for us. The next thing we have is we're going to take a small recess, but then we're going to go into a closed meeting. So Councillor Mearns, can you do that for us, please?
You bet. I make a motion that the regular committee of the whole meeting continue with the closed session to discuss a land matter, and this item shall remain confidential pursuant to section 24(1) of FOIP and section 197(2) of the MGA.
Excellent. All in favor of that motion? That is carried. We're going to have a recess for about 7.5 minutes, and we'll gather likely in the back at 7:20 for that closed meeting. let's wait till Parth sits down. I can stand. Are we back, Joe? Okay, so can we get a motion to come out of camera?
I make a motion that closed session concludes and council reverts back to the regular meeting of council.
All in favor? Excellent, that is passed unanimously. Councillor Mearns.
I make a motion that this regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole continue to closed session to discuss legal advice related to a STAR bylaw appeal. The same shall remain confidential pursuant to the STAR appeal section 24(1)(bi).
Excellent. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Back we go. We good, Joe? Okay, we are coming out of closed session. Would someone like to take us out?
I move that the closed session concludes and council reverts back to the regular meeting of council.
All in favor? Excellent. That brings us to the end of our agenda. This meeting is adjourned.